The most magnificent state pageant in which Edward took part was his own funeral in 1910, which he had planned in detail himself. For the first time in British history, the monarch lay in state in Westminster Hall as 250,000 of his subjects filed past. George V was now king. He presided over Edward's funeral, the last great gathering of the family of European royalty, of which the British monarchy, with its German origins, was an important branch. But in the First World War, these foreign connections threatened the popularity of the royal family, so the king decided to change the family name from Saxe-Coburg-Gotha to something more British.
There was a great deal of xenophobia, anti-German feeling, and the king decided that he would lay to rest any suspicion that the royal family was German. And it was Lord Stamfordham, the king's private secretary, who came up with Windsor. It was a brilliant suggestion. I suppose the profile of Windsor Castle is the best known in the whole of the United Kingdom. This identified the king with something very old and very English and very lasting. Not everybody approved of the change. There was one old Austrian nobleman who said that monarchy really had deteriorated when it changed the name of a dynasty because of a mere war.
The Great War was to see the old European order swept away. One of George's cousins, the Kaiser of Germany, was deposed, and another, Tsar Nicholas of Russia, executed by revolutionaries. In fact, the fall of the other great European monarchies greatly enhanced the position of the new House of Windsor.
Britain was the only nation which kept a kind of great power imperial monarchy, almost by accident. And so, as the 20th century unfolded, the British monarchy became an essential part of Britain's sense of self-identity and self-esteem, this unique institution unrivaled by any other nation in the world. And almost until our own time, the delight, the pride in possessing this unique imperial monarchy has precluded any serious thought about reorganizing the monarchy, let alone abolishing it.
Throughout the present reign, the excitement surrounding royal weddings has provided an important boost for the popularity of the royal family. But for hundreds of years, they had taken place in private at the Royal Chapel at Windsor. It was George V who turned these family events into truly popular public spectacles. The wedding of the Duke and Duchess of York, later King George VI and Queen Elizabeth in 1923, was actually the first wedding of a royal prince to take place in Westminster Abbey since 1352. In 1932, George V extended the popular appeal of the monarchy still further with the first Christmas radio broadcast, heard by an audience of 20 million people worldwide.
Through one of the marvels of modern science, I am enabled this Christmas Day to speak to all my people.
The king bows punctiliously.
And the ability to exercise control over the mass media was to prove essential to the survival of the monarchy at its most critical hour.
Edward says she makes him happy.
In 1936, King Edward VIII created a constitutional crisis over his plans to marry the twice-divorced Mrs. Wallis Simpson. The story was all over the American press and newsreels.
Enchantment that charms Edward of England.
But the British press barons and newsreel owners agreed to the royal family's request not to report the story at all.
The British press was so tamed by the establishment and by the press proprietors that not a word of this reached the British public until everything was virtually settled and George VI and Queen Elizabeth were just about to take over. The crisis was over, everything was done. Today, inconceivable, but in those days, I think the tame British press was a vital part of the British monarchy.
In his new queen, King George VI had someone whose popular touch has proved vital in sustaining the monarchy for over 60 years.
The Queen Mother is really almost the best communicator of all the royal family, and for some years now, so she can be seen at her best, and she's one of these people who really realizes that you have to look good for the people who turn out to see you. And she very cleverly has in her car spotlights that shine directly onto her face. She leans slightly forward in the car, and then people get a perfect image of her.
His Majesty King George VI and Queen
As a new
Elizabeth
queen, Elizabeth willingly opened the doors for the press and newsreels, which in the aftermath of the abdication literally doubled their output of royal stories.
And it is in this role
The emphasis was once again on the family.
that we bring them to you now, in the most charming and natural pictures ever taken of our royal family. London is
In
everywhere
wartime,
witnessed
Queen
scenes like
Elizabeth
these.
had no hesitation in calling in the cameras to ensure the royal family was seen sharing the suffering of the people.
And the knowledge that their king and queen are among them has greatly heartened the people.
After the war, because of her father's ill health, Princess Elizabeth increasingly assumed the public responsibilities of the monarchy.
One reign has ended, a reign begins. At London Airport...
Her own accession to the throne in 1952 was to set in motion the most dramatic transformation of the public face of the monarchy through the medium of television.
At St. James's Palace, the Coronation Commission assembles for its first meeting.
But at first, the establishment opposed the idea of broadcasting the coronation ceremony live on television. It was the Duke of Norfolk who saw its potential.
Such great occasions.
Well, the Duke of Norfolk was very forward-thinking, and a lot of people thought he was rather stuffy, but in fact that wasn't so at all. And he had this big responsibility of organizing the coronation, and I think he felt that if it was televised live, then it would be seen by the whole country, and this could do nothing but good for the monarchy. I mean, there'd been this mystique about the monarchy, but why shouldn't everyone see the coronation? I think that was his attitude.
And for the first time in history, through the medium of television, the ancient and noble rite of a coronation service will be witnessed by millions of Her Majesty's subjects.
Now, the Archbishop turns to the west side of the theatre, looking down the full length of the Abbey.
Wherefore, all you who are come this day to do your homage and service, are you willing to do the same?
The Queen herself was delighted with the television presentation.
The royal visitors went first to Studio E.
The Queen came to Lime Grove to see a recording. We didn't have videotape in those days, it was just a film tele-recording. And she enjoyed it so much that she knighted George Barnes, who was director of television at the time, she knighted him on the spot in Lime Grove, where she'd watched the recording.
Peter Dimmock has little doubt why the royal family were so pleased.
Well, fairly soon after the coronation, when I was talking to Prince Philip about television, I said that I thought the coronation broadcast had ensured the future of the monarchy for at least 30 years. And I think he agreed with me, because he then took on a lot of projects himself and became very interested in television.
But the awe-inspiring effects of the coronation had begun to wear off by the 1960s.
On Sunday, Her Majesty was 37 and newsworthy as ever, even when doing nothing in particular. Was described by ITN as celebrating quietly her birthday with her family at Windsor Castle. But how do you celebrate your own birthday noisily?
Happy birthday to me, happy birthday to me, happy birthday, dear monarch, happy birthday to me.
And in 1968, even Prince Philip admitted publicly that perhaps the monarchy was looking boring.
You know, we're getting on for middle age, and I dare say when we are really ancient, there might be a bit more reverence again. I don't know, but I just thought we were entering probably the least interesting period of, you know, of a kind of glamorous existence.
People began to get terribly bored with the monarchy. And that's the one thing that monarchs can never allow to happen. And I think you had, at the end of the 60s, the idea that the British monarchy was sort of vanishing away. Even the Daily Telegraph said the British monarchy will not be abolished in a revolution, but it could fade away in one great collective yawn.
Once again, the monarchy was ready to respond, authorizing the enormously successful film Royal Family.
We see this is strong enough to...
Get off! Get off! I wanted this. The significant thing about that film was that no one had ever seen the royal family in a kind of natural way like any other family. I mean, they weren't like any other ordinary family, of course, but they were human beings, at least, like the rest of us. And I think that caused a great identification with the royal family, greater than had happened at any time before.